Conquer family, what's going on? It's Coach Ty Palms with my main man, Jason Leiden. We're bringing you guys another Conquer Chat episode. Today we got a cool topic. How would we individually program the CrossFit Games? The reason this topic comes up is because I think everyone views CrossFit a little differently. That may just be based upon how they were brought into the sport or what they really enjoyed about the sport when they first started. So I think this makes an interesting topic, especially as we have different people programming the games now. We're actually not really sure who is doing the programming, and some people aren't as happy with how it's being programmed the past couple of years as it has in the past, or some may be more happy about it. Regardless, we're going to give our take on it and just let you guys know what we would do. Anyways, what's happening, Jay?
Tommy, what's up, man? I'm doing good, bro. This is a good fucking question. When you pose a question to me, I've been thinking about it a lot as far as what I would do.
Yeah.
So good question. But no, all is good, man. All is good with me. What am I gonna say? Do you know Idaho implemented the death penalty for pedophiles?
Yes, because I brought this up to you. That's because Ryan posted it, and then we were in a meeting, and I said Ryan's posted it, and that's how we know.
You're right. You're right. You did bring that up. You're the one.
Yeah, interesting topic. That's political. You want to go that route?
I mean, I think if anybody's uneasy about talking about that route, then they need to look themselves in the fucking mirror.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean,
For
if you
sure.
have a fucking kid and you're okay with people taking advantage of kids and okay, all right, we'll go a different route then. What would be worse? Life in jail for those people or the death penalty? I feel like
Well,
life in jail, they're getting abused.
nah, bro. Yeah, you are, but like nothing scarier than the thought of dying.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The thought of a
I think.
shower, thought of a shower with five.
Yeah, bro. They definitely get messed up if they know you're a pedophile, from what I would imagine, at least.
Right. All
I don't
right.
think anyone likes them.
All right. We'll go off this topic.
Pivot, pivot.
Pivot. All right, here we go. All right. So Tommy asked the question, how would we program for the CrossFit Games? This is a fantastic question. And I think the way I'm going to answer it, Tommy, is I'm not going to talk about outlines. I think I'm going to talk about more themes of the way
Mm-hmm.
I would look about it for the time. Okay. And I wrote down some quick notes when you asked this. And number one, I say, well, how does CrossFit define fitness? So I'm assuming that if I'm programming for CrossFit Games, it's inside the landscape of CrossFit, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we have increased work capacity across broad time and modal domain. So we know that that's the overarching theme. I have to think about how I can express work capacity across various times, various domains, and various intensities, right? So that's going to
Yep.
be the main thing that's going to be the overarching theme that governs my decisions. From there, I'm looking at what's another definition that they have, and it's the 10 general physical skills: cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance. So that's what CrossFit has harped on since day one. These are the 10 general physical skills that our training methodology progresses with athletes. So I got to think about, well, how can I express those 10 general physical skills for the highest level athletes throughout the games? And then the third component is, for me, it has to be observable, measurable, and repeatable, right? So these are the three things that CrossFit talks about a lot: observable, measurable, and repeatable. And I've got into this discussion a lot lately, Tommy, where the open, the games, it's not, to me, it's not observable, measurable, and repeatable, because it's always fucking different and people are always changing, right? Like I was talking to an athlete about this the other day. You look at the open, and some athletes get so upset if they feel like they're not doing better this year compared to last year. I'm like, but it's a different landscape. Different workouts, different people come into it, different people leave it. There's different types of people. Nothing is the fucking same except, and you're fucking older, right? If
Yep.
you've trained consistently for a year, you are fitter and better than where you were last year. 100%. It might not show it because CrossFit talks about being observable, measurable, repeatable, But the games, the open, their testing isn't observable, measurable, and repeatable, in my opinion. Like you look at anything else, you look at High Rocks. It's the same fucking workout every single time, no matter where you go. 1K run, wall balls, 1K run, ski, or whatever the format is, right? You look at everything else that has it on a world stage and is observable, measurable, repeatable in the same fashion. So I would set it up where the workouts are going to express the highest domain of work capacity against various times and domains. But how I'm going to look to define and find work capacity has to incorporate the 10 general skills of cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance. And I'm going to repeat that to make it observable, measurable, and repeatable. And that's how I would do the CrossFit Games. Now, how I would structure the tests around finding the specific work capacity domains for my athletes, I think that's where it gets really beautifully scientific, because it's how are you going to structure it throughout the 5 days or the 4 days? Are you going to do a long endurance event first and then follow it up with a lifting event? And to me, that's the semantics around it. But I think from an overarching theme, these three things have to be expressed better inside the workouts. And I'm going to pause there because I feel like I can keep going, but I want to hand it over to you and see what you have to say.
Yeah. So I like the direction you're going and bringing up the definitions and what we define as fitness as well. One thing that I thought was interesting and that I honestly kind of enjoyed that the past CrossFit Games did was that they tested weightlifting and monostructural, and I'm trying to remember, but I'm pretty sure gymnastics as a sole event, like single modality, to kind of like, okay, like how are you at this? How are you at this? How are you at this? And then kind of brought mixed modal together. I thought that was a unique way of doing it. And I'm not really one for single modality testing. I'll get more into that later, but I thought that was kind of cool. And the one thing I would say though that I think they went wrong with it is the single modality testing of weightlifting is always a 1 rep max snatch or clean and jerk. I mean, yes, we saw sandbag clean, but there's so many ways to test weightlifting in the sport of CrossFit that is unique to the sport that they're missing the mark on. Like, for example, if we have our athletes do like an insane clean complex, like clean, jerk, 2 front squats, jerk, thruster, I don't even know, just something random, that's potentially a complex that we can do better than like 99% of weightlifters, which makes us look good in the sport of weightlifting. But when we do 1 rep maxes, and then if you were to compare them to where we are in the sport of weightlifting, it makes us look bad. So I do believe that I would probably try to make it so that we would look good at the sport we're performing rather than vice versa. So that's one direction I would like to see the sport go a little bit more. And that's where I'll pause.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So you're saying for your area of power, you like to highlight the tests more where it's not so much of a direct comparison to elitists in those modalities. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, even the 5K run in which we didn't run a full 5K, you have like 10th graders on a track team beating us. You know, it's like, what's the point of, we're just not going to look good doing that. But I still did think it was unique, but I would test conditioning maybe not in a single modality. Like, let's combine rowing and running for long distance, like the classic hero workout. What's that hero workout that's I think a mile run, 2K row, mile run?
I don't know, but I know what you're talking about.
Like, that's a great way because the runners aren't going to be this and that workout, and neither are the rowers probably. And so we look good, you know. That's something I think we should be doing a better job of.
Yeah, I agree. I like the idea of single modality testing segueing into mixed modal CrossFit work. Like I like because I think for me, if we're looking at the themes, it's like, okay, well, they talk about gymnastics, weightlifting, and monostructural work. It's like I like the idea of having set tests that they do that are repeatable every single year from that area. Then I like the idea of it segueing throughout the span of the week or the weekend into more CrossFit style work, so people
Hmm.
can kind of see the blend of it. I think the magical thing in programming the games is it really comes around to Tommy, I don't think there's a wrong way to do it, right? I think too many people harp on that. I think if you're thinking about how to express work capacity across broad time, motor domain, and how to show how efficient and good CrossFitters are across the 10 general physical skills, and then you make that repeatable. I mean, I think that's, to me, like, that's just a home run. I think where it goes wrong is it's changing too much too often. There's different programmers doing it. Some of the stuff that they do just doesn't make sense to me. It can be done way better. And I'm not trying to, I know this isn't turning into like, we're not criticizing anything, but I think sometimes things can get lost around the showmanship of it. And like the spectacle and the spectator side of it. I think if they, and I think over time though, that can essentially pull from the effectiveness of it. So I'm going to pause there and I'm going to now hand the ball off to you.
Okay. So yeah, I agree with where you're going. So I guess the first thing I should state is that I would probably do some level of single modality testing, but in a way that is unique to CrossFit. That also makes it exciting. So I already kind of said that, right? So I would combine rowing and running. It's not single modality, but we're really just harping on conditioning. I would do some kind of weightlifting event that is unique. So maybe a tough complex or things that like most weightlifters wouldn't do. And then on the gymnastics side of things, I really think you can go plain and simple there. Even like, 50 ring muscle ups for time is going to be a great test. Um, then we start mixing things, right? And also something I think we should have noted that we didn't is like thinking about the pyramid, right, of CrossFit and how they say, you start from the base, right? It starts with nutrition, then it goes monostructural, gymnastics, weightlifting, sport, right? And like how much area of focus should be within your programming is kind of based around that pyramid, right? So a lot of it should be based around conditioning, which I think we know. But the one thing I don't like to see in CrossFit workouts are bottlenecks. And I don't like bottlenecks because I believe that CrossFit workouts, everyone should have something that they're able to like push and pull from, meaning like, okay, I'm really good at this, but I'm not so good at this. And this is where I can make up my time to potentially win the workout. I don't like where everyone is solely focused on one movement that they have to excel at or they're fucked. So just like the example of like putting a massive set of like 5 seated legless rope climbs in the middle of a workout and just being like, who's going to get through those 5 fastest wins the workout. Like that's not what I'm really about, personally, because I also don't like bottlenecks because I think they kill intensity, which is how always have viewed the sport as like it's intense, muscularly, but also aerobically for sure. And those bottlenecks tend to kill the aerobic aspect of the sport. So that's also something I wouldn't do. And that's where I'll pass it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I think bottlenecks pull away from the meaning of CrossFit, right? And if I guess
Yeah.
I keep going back to High Rocks because that seems to be a very up and coming popular sport, even though I know it's not new, but it seems to be getting more and more traction amongst a lot of people. And I think the reason being is because it doesn't change. There's no bottlenecks, the weight, the movements, it's not affecting it. So it's really, in my opinion, like that's the sport right now where everybody can be on equal level playing field. And I think sometimes with CrossFit and the CrossFit Games, it gets a little lost because some of the stuff is just so ridiculous that people can't really like compare themselves to that, right? It's like the Olympics. It's like, hey, we should put, you watch the Olympics and you often hear people being like, oh, this fucking guy sucks, this girl sucks, I could do that. And what did everyone say about the Olympics? Right? There should be an event where you put normal everyday people next to the Olympians because everyone can run 400 meters, right? Everybody can run a mile or whatnot. But it's like you put you make the CrossFit Games in a way where it hones true to the essence of the theme of CrossFit without bottlenecks, without crazy things like, a pirouette on top of a box before you go into a handstand walk, right? And you want the everyday person to be like, oh, fuck, like I can fucking do that. I can probably hang out with Frazier and give him a run for his money. It's like, well, no, you fucking can't, right? It's like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
kind of like that aspect. I actually think like one of the best programmed CrossFit Games, Tommy, was the COVID year. Like that's one of
Yeah.
my favorite fucking years. There's a
Me
lot of
too.
stuff there. It was a smashing of an event, but I pulled it up on the screen right now. Like the first workout was like Friendly Fran. And it's like everyone's done Fran, right? And like, wow, these dudes are now doing thrusters and chest bar pull-ups slightly heavier, not overly heavier. Like that's crazy, right? Then a heavy front squats. Then Diane, which is just a little bit of a deficit, just enough, and the weight's just a little bit heavier, and but it's not overdoing it, right? And you had Nasty Nancy, and then your handstand hold. So you had things that were expressing, and then you had a sprint work, right? 100-yard sprint, sled push, yard sprint. Everyone can kind of tie into that one, heavy snatch ladder, toes to bar lunge. So there was this beautifully simplistic concept of that games, which I think really locks into the grandmother working out next to the elitist, right? Where now in some of the games, some of the events, it's not that, and it pulls from that, and it's always fucking changing. So it's so hard to really compare people, and I think that's what makes Tia and Rich and Frazier so much of an anomaly, where they can continually just dominate and perform at such a high level, and they did, with everything always constantly changing right around the workouts. But yeah, just some thoughts. I think beauty and the simplicity, repeatable of it, and have it be where people can like try to compare themselves to it a little bit more,
Yeah. Well, that year was so great, obviously, because like the first half of it was online, and then it cut to people that went to perform, and so they had to perform a certain amount of those workouts in an actual gym setting,
Mm-hmm.
which is what
Mm-hmm.
made it so cool. Like you had to be able to do it in a CrossFit gym, and like you said, it was you were able to actually compare, which I think also is really cool. And it's classic CrossFit. Like that's just what that shit was, and that's why it was so cool. I I could be wrong here. People could have a different argument with me, but I don't like watching people bike ride at the CrossFit Games. And I don't like watching people have to do anything with like a paddleboard or anything of that nature. I think also those two things like bias based upon where you live way too much. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have access to an ocean, like you can't expect people to perform well in those kind of events. Like it's just not fair. Every single person though can go run. You know what I mean? So like that's why it's no surprise when the Australians get out of the water first. Like we know it's happening, like right, and then so and they're also pretty boring to watch. I would argue, like the bike event is always boring. So you obviously want to keep it somewhat of a spectacle, and like how much does like bike riding really test fitness at the CrossFit Games specifically, where there's a massive like skill component to that once again not every single person has access to. So that is also something I don't like, where like we combine toes to bar and power cleans and burpees. Like that's an even playing field. Like everyone does those movements. Like that's really testing fitness, where I don't know if the biking is actually testing fitness for the full field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I actually liked from this past year where they took out the swimming, and it was ski erg and swimming. This is 2 years ago. 2 years ago, ski erg and swimming. That kind of made it more CrossFitty,
yeah,
versus like, hey, we're gonna go, swim a 2K, and 1K of it's gonna be a walk in the water, right? Which is like this change it. This isn't it. So you're right. I think they go wrong where they try to make bottlenecks. They try to make things too far out there, where it's too like far fetched for the community to try to put themselves in the shoes of the athletes to be able to do and compete. And I think when some of the stuff is more environmental specific, geologically, not environmental, but maybe geologically specific, I think it pulls from it as well, right? It's like doing a bike ride on grass. It's like, I don't know, that's not really testing people's fitness to me. It's like, I don't know.
yeah.
But
I agree.
yes, so I think going back to it, my main thing is beauty in the simplicity of it. Put it in a fashion where if you want to ramp it up, yeah, ramp it up just a notch where it's like, wow, people can understand and appreciate it more, but still think they can put themselves in the shoes of the athletes to have a closer comparison to it. I think is wonderful to do. And I think having stuff more repeatable and measurable can go a long way with inside the sport. I know it's like that because they throw in the things, right? Time across work capacity or across broad time modal domain, and but then they go like the unknown and unknowable. So I mean I get it, but I think if you're trying to really, this is the age-old argument that I've had for 17 years, but if you're trying to really professionalize it and market it, I do think at some point things need to become more repeatable from a data standpoint. Um, just a preservation standpoint, I think everything is repeatable. All tests in every other area are repeatable, right? It's like you're not going to take an archer and be like, oh, guys, guess what? This year we're adding a fucking snowstorm, and next year, guess what? Now you're doing archery in the fucking rain. It's like it's always the fucking same.
Yeah, well, that's the tough question for sure. Is like,
Mm.
which would you do? Now, my question to you is like, just to make it easy, two tests. What two tests would you have that you would repeat every year to like find the fittest person?
Wow.
Well, I think personally, I like the first thing that comes to mind is a running test. Like, I just think um that is super important. So like if I was to repeat a test, it would be something that includes running and maybe even by itself, because who knows, maybe that makes us amazing at running at some point. And that's also the other argument is like, we compare ourselves to weightlifters and gymnasts and potentially runners if there's a running event. And the reason we're not as good at them at some of the stuff is because we don't like solely focus on it. Like we do focus on weightlifting, but only so much because we don't know how valuable a certain part of it is. If we're like, dude, you have to 1 rep max snatch every single time you step on this field, who knows what the number is we might get.
Right.
But what would you do you have anything that comes to mind that you would want to see?
So do you want a specific like these two movements? You want something like a mixed modal workout?
I don't care.
Hmm. I would always want to see, well, I'm not gonna say running, even though I do agree with you. I do think to me that would be a huge component. But I would want to have the lifting portion always repeatable, and I would want to have you said only two workouts, two styles. So lifting part and um like a 7 to 10 minute range mixed modal tester, always repeatable. Whether that's, thrusters, pull-ups, and burpees or whatever it might be. But I
Yeah.
would love to see like those two always repeatable. And I say the 7 to 10 minute range because again, through the definition of CrossFit, that's sort of like where they always claim their fame, stake their claim on. I think the lifting portion, just because I just fucking think that's so cool. And if like whether it's the CrossFit total or whether it's a fucking 1 rep max snatch or clean jerk or some sort of complex, that doesn't matter to me. But I think having that repeatable will allow you to really see the crazy progress that CrossFit athletes can make with strength and moving a barbell. And I think like having something in that 7 to 10 minute range will show you how crazy fast people can push, right? With inside the sport of CrossFit, with inside their meat and potato of a workout. And then I do agree with some sort of running, but you said two, so I'll keep it at those two.
It's funny because I was going to ask you like what your average time domain would be for the sport of CrossFit across all your tests. And I like the 7 to 10 minute. I like where you went with that. I initially my mindset was kind of like 12 to 15 minutes. The reason that is because I feel like the 12-minute mark is where you see some separation in people's
Mhm.
fitness. Like, right, like as soon as I'm for some reason in 12 minutes, like people just die and drop off, and then like the ones who are really fit can kind of hold on. Um, but yeah, that was going to be a question of mine, but I really liked your answers there. I agree with that 7 to 10. You could just fly and see how amazing people are, and then put an average human next to them, and it's just like a completely different sport.
Bro, that's the thing. Like, if there was like a set 6 workouts, 7 workouts that always repeated. Think about the awe that people would have with people like breaking shit. Like when CrossFit first started, the leaderboard was like 30 muscle ups for time would be like 5 minutes, right? And then, okay, cool, 4, 3.5, 2.5, people doing it 2, 3 sets. And then one year they did 30 ring muscle ups for time at the games, and dudes are going unbroken. Girls are going unbroken. And everyone's like, oh my fucking God. And that's something that gymnasts can't do. They can't, right?
Yep.
So when you do things like that and you give it time for CrossFit athletes, the elite athletes to continually improve upon it, you see crazy results and abilities where people are now like can really like put themselves in the shoes and compare and be like, God, they're doing 30 ring muscle ups in the same amount of time it takes me to do 10 ring muscle ups, right? Or 5.
Yep.
It's insane, man. Yeah. So
Yep.
yeah.
I like it. I like it. I think that's where we can leave off on this one.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Hope you guys found some good information from that. As always, check us out at conquerathlete.com. This is a YouTube talk, so be sure to like, share, comment. If you disagree, we'd love to know why. Shoot us an email on it. And thanks, guys.
Peace.